Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're having a wonderful week like always. I'm continuing with my Cyndi Lauper discography journey, and we made it to her fourth studio album from 1993 called Hat Full of Stars. I am looking at the track list and I don't recall hearing any of these songs before, but like always, if I start listening to a song and it sounds familiar, I'll let you guys know. The album is 53 minutes. I don't really have anything else to say right now, so let's get into the first track. Track number 1, that's What I Think. Alrighty, that was track number 1, That's What I Think, and wow, definitely much different than her prior 3 albums. The production was really nice, it was very interesting, very unexpected, but I really liked it. And the lyrics, there's a bit of social commentary in the lyrics. She's saying, the streets are filled with too many babies, black air and a blue sky. People pass by, no life in their eyes, the concrete jungle's really going crazy. But I forget the world and everything around me, that's what I think when I think about you. And then she goes on to say, the rent is due and the pockets are empty. People ask machines for the truth, no crystal ball. Was this song written in 2020? Because honestly, this sounds like 2020 right here. It just goes to show you that not much has changed in the last 27 years when it comes to people's livelihoods. So when she thinks about this person, she forgets the world and everything around her. All the suffering and everything that feels overwhelming, she forgets about that and the world when she thinks about you. At least that's what I think the song's about. So now let's move on to track number 2, Product of Misery. Alrighty, and that was track number 2, A Product of Misery, and I am loving the production on this album. I'm really enjoying myself. This is definitely a different sound than her prior 3 albums, and I'm really enjoying it. The lyrics in particular, I mean, the lyrics aren't the happiest lyrics in the world. She's saying, every time I see that frown, broken down and out, the drudgery goes on and on. I ain't gonna live that way because she's just a product of misery. So she's not gonna live like her mother and her mother before her. She's not gonna live in misery like they did. Passions laid to rest, buried with her wedding dress. Now she's just a product of misery. I don't want to live like that. And I can kind of relate to this song because there have been people in my life who were just not happy people. You could tell that they were pretty miserable, and it was very deep-rooted to the point where they were like that for many, many, many years, perhaps even decades, I don't know. And you could just tell they were fed up with something and they just weren't happy anymore. And I would see these people and I would tell myself, I don't want to be like that. I've known a few people very close to me who are like that, and it's very contagious, and it can spread to other people and make other people feel like crap, but I chose to fill my life with passion and things I want to do, and I never, ever want to be a product of misery, ever in my life. So now we're gonna move on to track number 3, Who Let In the Rain.
Things like this can always take a little time, and I wonder who let in the rain. When love gets strong, people get weak. Sometimes they lose control and wind up in too deep. Who let in the rain?
Okay, that was track number 3, Who Let In the Rain. And her vocals, I'll start with her vocals. They are so raw and passionate on this track, especially towards the end. Wow. And the lyrics, I'm in love with the lyrics on this album. This isn't the happiest record. I really do like it, but would this be an album I listen to again? Obviously I would, but I would have to be in the right mood because it's making me think about things that I don't really want to be thinking about right now, to be honest with you. And it's a little bit of a downer, but it's great. Lyrically, what she has to say, it's very strong, and I feel like a lot of people can relate to what she's saying. Things like this can always take a little time. I always thought we'd be together down the line. We start to fight and can't get over what was said, 'cause you see black and white, and I see red, and I wonder who let in the rain. And then she goes on to say, I envy lovers passing by out on the street, 'cause what they have I couldn't keep, and I wonder who let in the rain. Now, this track was the lead single off the album. I am curious to know if the song is referring to someone in particular in Cyndi's life. It must be, and if you guys know, leave a comment and share that with me. What I also like about this album is the artwork, not just for the album, but also the artwork for the singles. It's very vaudeville, very early 20th century, 1920s, and I really like it. It reminds me of a movie I watched on Netflix a few weeks ago or last month. I forget when, but it was very recent. It's called The Circus from 1928. Netflix put up all these older movies from the 1920s and 30s, and I started watching The Circus. It's a silent film, and it stars and was directed by Charlie Chaplin. So now let's move on to track number 4, Lies. Okay, that was track number 4, Lies, and this was another song I ended up really liking. The first minute or so, I didn't really know what to make of it, but then towards the middle, and then towards the end of the song, I ended up really liking the track. In particular, I loved her voice on this track, especially near the middle towards the end, where she has that great moment with her vocals. That was great to listen to. There's no telling when you'll slip off the edge and you start up again, but I'm not the same child who just had no defense. Don't tell me your lies. So you know what, we're just gonna move on to track number 5, Broken Glass. Okay, and that was track number 5, Broken Glass. This was another really good song. This album, in my opinion, has been very consistent, and I've liked each and every one of the songs so far on this album. Could this be one of my favorite Cyndi Lauper albums? I think it might be, which I wasn't expecting going into this album, but you know what? I'm here for it. I'm actually really loving this album, and this track, she is saying how her mom said to her, "Don't ever let a man hit you. And I swore I'd never be like her or my grandmother." And this goes back to track number 2, where she says she never wants to be like her mom or her grandmother, who were products of misery. So there's lots of reminiscing on this album. She doesn't want to be miserable, and she doesn't want to be abused physically and verbally like people she knew from her past, like her mother and her grandmother, because she looked like broken glass when she fell to the ground. I heard the sound of thunder trailing off. And then she goes on to say, the slightest thing could spark you. There was always hell to pay. I could feel your darkness in me, and I knew just what to say. And the rest I can't remember, but it sounded like a gun. Cyndi is talking about serious topics on this album. Everyday serious topics that everyday people can relate to, even myself. I also love how this song was more R&B influenced, which I really liked. So now let's move on to track number 6, Sally's Pigeons.
When I was 8, I had a friend with a pirate smile, running down my alleyway in time to watch Sally's pigeons fly. Instinct and common sense, they come in different quantities.
Okay, and that was track number 6, Sally's Pigeons. I can't with this album anymore. It is so... It's just making me feel things. When I was 8, I had a friend with a pirate smile, make believe and play pretend we were innocent and wild, hopped a fence and slammed the gate, running down my alleyway. So she's telling the story, and I don't know if this actually happened. It could just be a make-believe story she's telling, or metaphorical, maybe it actually happened, I don't know, but this is definitely one of my favorite tracks on the album. It's very pretty, it's very beautiful, it's sad a little bit as well, and emotional, and I love it. Lyrically, I think this might be my favorite song on the album. I just love the story that she's telling on this song. Now, Sally's Pigeons was the 3rd single off the album, and it says here that the song was inspired by the story of a childhood friend of Lauper who in her teens got pregnant, had a back alley abortion, and died as a result. This album's gonna make me cry. It also says here that Lauper was a childhood fan of Elton John, and as a tribute to him, Sally's Pigeons contains references to Tiny Dancer, a song that Lauper has revealed to always make her cry. Well, this song's gonna make me cry. I feel like some of the songs on this album, Hatful of Stars, are some of her best and some of her strongest. I mean, what a comeback after her prior album, A Night to Remember, which I wasn't the biggest fan of. That album has grown on me since listening to it, but it's still my least favorite Cyndi Lauper album, I believe. But this one, A Hatful of Stars, it's great. So now we're gonna move on to track number 7, It Feels Like Christmas, and it does feel like Christmas where I am because I'm looking out the window and it's snowing. Yes, it's snowing. Okay, that was track number 7, It Feels Like Christmas. And what is there to say about this song? It's a Christmas song. It's great. It makes you feel good. And I would definitely add this to my Christmas playlist. I really enjoyed it. It feels like Christmas with you. Hey Louie, life is sweet. Can't be bitter when you're here with me. Hey Louie, no regrets. And what I didn't know is that in 1998, Cyndi released a Christmas album, which I had no idea. I had no idea Cyndi had a Christmas album, so I'm definitely gonna have to listen to her Christmas album this coming November or December. So now let's move on to track number 8, Dear John. Okay, that was track number 8, Dear John. Another great song, 8 for 8. I've loved all the songs so far. Off this album, her vocals, I've really enjoyed her singing on this album. I always enjoy her singing, but this album in particular, I really like her vocals, and this song's pretty straightforward. She said, Dear John, what's wrong? Why can't you just be anything you want? Why not? They tried to pigeonhole you, buddy, they don't even know you. But hang on, my dear, maybe you're not just like everyone. And then at the very end of the song, she says, Dear John, you could be anything you want, why not? Why, you could even be an astronaut. Another very meaningful song, you can be anything you want to. Don't let people try to dictate or guide you down a path that isn't right for you. You can be whatever you want. Hell, you could be an astronaut. I couldn't be an astronaut. I mean, yes, you can be anything you want, but there are some things that I could never be in my life, like an astronaut. I could never be a lawyer. I don't have the mind for that. I was always a very artistic and creative person. I always use that side of my brain, so math and science and numbers, numbers, math, So if you want to be something, if you want to do something, and you know that you can do it, then do it. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. A part of me is thinking back to American Idol and the American Idol auditions when people who thought they could sing would go into the audition room and they would start singing and Simon Cowell would just cringe. And don't be one of those people. Don't live with delusions of grandeur thinking you can be something or do something when you actually can't. Hey, would I love to sing like Celine Dion or Josh Groban? Sure, but that's never gonna happen. So be realistic with your choices, but at the end of the day, do whatever makes you happy. So let's move on to track number 9, Like I Used To. Okay, that was track number 9, Like I Used To, and her vocals. Once again, her vocals blew me away on this track. And this was another good song. Initially, it wasn't one of my favorites on the album. It's still probably not one of my favorites on the album, but I still liked it. It's very consistent with the rest of the album. And we're continuing the theme of her once following the rules, just like a fool. I know you expected me to act just like a schoolgirl, followed your rules just like a fool, wrapped up in your world. Ain't gonna be the way it used to. Alright for you, ain't alright for me. So whatever she did before, she's not gonna do it that way because it wasn't right for her. It wasn't all right for her. So now she's gonna do it her own way. And then she says, I'm my own possession. I'm my own possession. Not yours. You can't possess me because I'm my own possession. So now let's move on to track number 10, Someone Like Me.
Midnight falls on snowy trees. Was someone like me doing in a life like that? I can't see what someone like me. What someone like me doing in a life like that? Get back to the past. What someone like me.
Alrighty, that was track number 10, Someone Like Me. This is another song that's pretty straightforward. She's essentially asking herself, what am I doing in a life like this? And she's saying, I can't see what someone like me is doing in a life like this, slipping back into the past. She says, take the first step, that's the trick of it all, bounce back like a ball. What's someone like me doing in a life like this? This song does tie in nicely with the rest of the album, and also track number 9, Like I Used To. In track number 9, she says, ain't gonna be the way it used to, and ain't gonna take your crap the way I used to. Ain't gonna be the way it used to. So it ain't gonna be the way it used to. I'm not the same person I used to be. I've grown, I've changed, I've learned, and I'm not gonna fall into the same traps. But at the same time, she doesn't know why someone like herself is living in the world she currently is living in. There's also a sense of optimism that it will get better and she will bounce back and she will take the first few steps forward into her new life along the brand new path ahead of her. So now let's move on to track number 11, Apart Hate.
Someone sister, this is a strange and bitter fruit. The rhythm in my veins. Where the color of lost is filled with hate me and hate you and all of it too apart. I cry out tears of anger, I cry out tears of shame.
Okay, that was track number 11, Apart Hate. 100% one of the strongest songs on the album, if not the strongest song on the album. And lyrically, it's very powerful. Another song with social commentary. And I feel like this album, Hatful of Stars, is Cyndi Lauper's Rhythm Nation. And it's great. I loved the choir on this song as well. And just a very powerful song to listen to. Why are the children carrying guns, not books? Drug dealing, not learning the golden rule. And the idea of freedom, not just some castle in the sky. Filled with hate me and hate you and proud of it too. I mean, another song that is so relatable in the year 2020, which is very sad to say. I cry out tears of anger. I cry out tears of shame. Apart hate. Definitely one of the more emotionally stirring songs on the album, and it's very powerful. I also want to say that she uses birds quite a bit on this album. She sings about birds, pigeons, and birds in general, so that's another theme throughout the album. And birds represent freedom, flying through the sky, being able to go wherever you want. So we have come to the end of the album, track number 12, Hatful of Stars.
I was folding up your letters, unpacking winter clothes. So I tore around the room like a bird without a head. Should have seen the magic in my hat full of stars. Should have seen the magic in my hat full of
Okay, and that was track number 12, A Hat Full of Stars. Obviously, the song in this album has touched me in so many ways, and this song got me teary-eyed, and we're ending this album on an emotional note, and I was not expecting. I saw your picture waving back at me from underneath the bed from a long, long time ago when all I had was a hat full of stars. The one I'll always treasure, the one that you wore. You loved the look, but you never looked inside. You would have seen me there. You could have seen far. You should have seen the magic in the hat full of stars. And then she says, I'm trying to live in the present, but I keep tripping on the past. And that is another theme that runs through the entire album as well. She does seem to be desperate and really wanting to move on and to live in the present and to look towards the future, but she can't help but think about the past and everything that happened, and she keeps tripping on the past and the memories of her past and the traps of her past, and they almost seem to haunt her like a ghost. So that is all 12 tracks of Hat Full of Stars, and wow, I was not expecting to love this album as much as I did. This is hands down one of my favorite Cyndi Lauper albums, and I personally think it's some of her best work ever out of her 4 albums, and this is great. I have to applaud this album just because I just seen where she came from. Girls Just Want to Have Fun, and then True Colors, and then A Night to Remember, and now this. I mean, the growth is amazing and remarkable, and like I said already, this is her Rhythm Nation, and so much social commentary, and she's talking about domestic abuse, and she's talking about misery and the state of the world, and so many other serious topics like abortion, and this album is just very, very powerful to listen to. I will also point out her voice because her voice sounds absolutely great on this album. I feel like she sounds the best on this album. Out of all her albums so far, she sounds the best on this one, in my opinion. There wasn't a single song on this album I disliked. It's a very consistent album. I liked each and every one of the songs, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting to dislike at least one song, but you know what? I loved each and every one of them. Obviously, there are songs I enjoy more than others, but overall, I would listen to each and every one of these songs again. I also enjoyed the production on this album. It was unexpected. I was expecting just another standard pop album from Cyndi Lauper, a pop rock album, but this is much different than her prior 3 albums, and I'm here for it. I really enjoyed myself. So what did you guys think of this album? Which are your favorite tracks? And maybe you don't think this is a great Cyndi Lauper album. I don't know how you could think that, because this is a very powerful album from Cyndi, and I definitely think it's one of her best. But if you don't think it's one of her best, tell me why in the comments. It isn't as fun as some of her other work. It doesn't make you feel good. It doesn't make you feel happy. It does make you feel a bit down and emotional. and it makes you think and it makes you feel. It doesn't really make you want to get up and dance and have a good time. I just really enjoyed the stories that she shared with us on this album. It's really unfortunate because it says here that the album had limited success due to lack of promotion on the part of Cyndi's label, of course. It's always the label's fault, isn't it, when an album underperforms? At least from what I read. More often than not, it's always the label that doesn't promote the album or what have you. I mean, sometimes the artist doesn't promote the album as well, but more often than not, it always just seems to be the label who just screws up the success of an album. So I think that's all I wanted to say on the album, and in my next Cyndi Lauper video, we'll be moving on to... What are we moving on to? Okay, in 1994, she released 12 Deadly Sins and then some, a greatest hits album, and then in 1996, she put out an EP called Wanna Have Fun, which looks like to be just another compilation album of some of her best songs. And then in 1996, that's when she put out her 5th studio album called Sisters of Avalon. I will say the album artwork for this album looks quite interesting, so I'm very curious to know what this album is gonna sound like. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. You can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Twitter, you can message me, you can tell me other artists I should check out. My moment artists for the decade. You can find out on music, you can check out my playlist. I said that really fast. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. Take care.